I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel, and love is in the air. Do this Valentine's Day. And whether you're hanging out with a partner or enjoying the freedom of single life, you're here clicking on this video so you can find out about Soulsborne's toxic relationships. Going from Demon Souls all the way to Elden Ring, I'll take you through a journey of some of my favorites. Honestly, I just wanted to make a little meme video to celebrate the occasion and have a laugh. So pick up a box of chocolates, take out your tub of ice cream from the freezer, and let those Sasha Velour rose petals fall, as you parry that subscribe button to stay up to date on all my latest videos, as we jump right in. My favorite toxic relationships of Soulsborne. Let me know your favorites down below. Starting off with Demon Souls, there are two toxic relationships that for me stand above the rest, both involving the folly of older men who lust for power. So let's start with the lesser of two evils, the old monk and his golden robes. The old monk is addicted to toxicity, for lack of a better term. He was banished from Latria by the Queen for his own toxic behavior, yet found a new relationship in the form of some fashionable Gucci golden robes. And like a parasite, the golden robes corrupted the man's soul beyond comprehension, allowing him to rebound back to Latria, kill his former wife, and create one of the creepiest areas in Soulsborne. Of course, the golden robes are toxic because they're just using the old monk. Everybody can see that. But because the old monk kicked out all his former allies from the group chat by killing them, he's got nobody left to tell him that this relationship isn't going to end well. And we see exactly how that plays out when the golden robes abandon the old monk, leaving him to die, while finding a new host with a summoned invader that we then kill on our journey to collect demon souls. A relationship needs communication and trust, and when one person breaks that contract, it all crumbles. But worse than Old Monk is the monster fucker that is King Allant and his pact with the Old One. King Allant decided to sacrifice his entire kingdom to allow demons to run rampant while he gained the powers of the Old One. Except as we see at the end of the game, those powers are nothing. He's a blob with absolutely zero ability to stop the player. His burning desire for power, which led to him sacrificing everything to achieve, meant nothing. King Allant is a toxic individual, and making a pact with an eldritch demonic abomination while also trying to convince us, the player, to make that same choice is a manipulation tactic, and we don't have to stand for it. For Dark Souls, I have a handful of toxic relationships to go through. How about the relationship between Blighttown and Framerate? Or the relationship between Lost Izalith and good level design? In all seriousness though, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, and the First Flame had one hell of a toxic fling. The whole purpose of the game is for the chosen undead to link the fire and continue that age, something Gwyn dedicated his life to as he wished for humanity and the gods to continue on. He put his whole Gwynussi into linking that fire when he realized nobody else was willing to do it, extending his age while letting himself be consumed by the kiln. And for what? He's so obsessed with keeping things the way they are that he isn't willing to allow growth or development or change. He strong-armed the rest of the gods into going along with his regime, to the point where Nito pieced out to go drink Mountain Dew in his crypt, and the Witch of Izalith tried to recreate the First Flame herself to shut Gwyn up accidentally, creating the Bed of Chaos. Gwyn was an old fool, and his inability to accept the demise of his kingdom led to a toxic obsession that consumed him. But that wasn't his main failing as a character, no. That goes to him allowing Guinevere to bang Seath, creating Priscilla. I know it's just a lore theory, but the idea of Priscilla being Seath and Guinevere's daughter is just horrifying to me, because in what world do Seath and Guinevere have any chemistry? One of them is a goddess of sunlight who fled Anor Londo and has the personality of cardboard, while the other is the world's creepiest lascivious lascivious dragon. And then their daughter gets banished to a painting where she convinces herself that bone wheel skeletons are nice creatures. That is toxic parenting at its finest. Of course, I can't end Dark Souls without talking about the most toxic relationship of all, Ornstein and Smo. Time for me to break out my Soulsborne fanfiction. Ornstein, reeling from the loss of baby girl Artorias, had nobody to turn to. Goch locked himself in a tower, Kieran vanished after visiting Artorias' grave, Gwyn's firstborn that he was loyal to was banished, and Gwyn himself went off to link the First Flame, leaving Ornstein to listen to the optional femboy of the Souls series, Gwyndolin, and getting paired up with the cannibal executioner, Smo. There's nothing you can say to convince me that this pair weren't toxic as fuck towards each other. Smo seething with jealousy that even with Artorias' death he still wasn't made a Knight of Gwyn, while Ornstein is wrapped up in his own depression and likely takes it out on Smo. You just know that they hate fucked, and there is nothing more toxic than a hate fuck. Eventually, Ornstein can't handle it anymore and leaves Anor Londo, done with Smo's bullshit, breaking free from that toxicity to go become a dragon in Dark Souls 3. Smo was so toxic that Ornstein said, "I'm becoming a scaly," and that's impressive. Unironically, Dark Souls 2 is a game of toxic relationships, and how they actually had a genuine impact on the plot of the game. The most important, of course, being that of Nashandra and Vendrick, the rulers of Drangleic who built up their kingdom from nothing, yet failed to contain the threat of the curse of the undead. Nashandra, of course, wanted this. Her desire for the Throne of Want forced her to nurture Vendrick until he could take the throne. So she made him war with the dragons, she turned him against Uldir, though to be fair, Uldir was pretty sus from the get-go. Meanwhile, we have Velstadt behind closed doors going, "Vendrick, Diva, you need to wake the fuck up. The Nashandrusi is not that good. She's playing you for a fool," leading to Vendrick's decision to isolate himself with his best guy friend in a very faraway crypt, while his wife is left to plot her next move. Nashandra's toxicity continues even after Vendrick's hollowing, convincing the bearer of the curse to seek her husband so that she can groom us to become the new ruler of Drangleic, and thus steal the power from us in the process. Her lust allowed her to push down any who stood in her way, to the point where her husband took a permanent Trixie Mattel sabbatical. Then you've got Nadalia at Broom Tower, who wanted to manipulate the Old Iron King in the same fashion, only to find the tower abandoned and the Old Iron King long since dead. And with her plans in complete disarray, she decided to embrace the toxicity of solitude. She split her soul into various idols and used her magic to bring back the corpses of those who once served the tower, forcing them to do her bidding. Broom Tower would be visited by various knights and looters, all of whom would be brought under her spell and forced into defending the lonely Shard of Manus. The most important, of course, being the Fume Knight, who came to see Nadalia as a mother figure he had to protect. Though how much of that was his own thinking versus Nadalia's toxic manipulation, we will never know. But perhaps the most apt toxic relationship in this entire video came in the form of a suggestion from Souls YouTuber Illusory Wall on my Blue Sky post. Mytha fumbling the Old Iron King Ussie and becoming a monster over it has gotta be up there. Who could forget Mytha, the baneful queen, whose quest for vanity and one-sided affection ended in her becoming the embodiment of a toxic icon? Her goal was to impress the Old Iron King with her bewitching good looks. After all, he was a ruler on the rise, and she was to be engaged to him. So she got to work. She teamed up with Anastasia Beverly Hills Cosmetics to create the Earthen Peak line of poisonous green blush and cunty black coal eyeliner to make herself as slay as possible. She literally turned her kingdom into a poisonous swamp, a toxic cesspit, the website X, if you will, in her bids to look appealing to the Old Iron King, and yet he held no love for her, instead claiming the heart of another, and it drove her insane. Her poisons twisted her, turning her from a fair woman into a horrific Medusa-like monster. and now she sits in a poisonous pool of her own making. It's not like the old Iron King did any better. He was an absolute mess of a human being who couldn't go to the bathroom without Sauron telling him it was a good idea. But the fact that Mytha took the term toxic relationship to its final form is too good to ignore for this video. For Bloodborne, I was surprised to find that there aren't that many toxic relationships to be had. As far as the player goes, we have the rather awkward side quest with Adela, where she becomes jealous of the relationship between the player and Ariana, which can end in her murdering the prostitute like a GTA protagonist before attempting to kill us soon after. But I'd rather focus on our problematic king, Gehrman, because he has not one, but two toxic relationships that he's tied to, and he manages to find himself on both sides of the coin as the victim and the toxic one. His toxic relationship stems from his one-sided obsession with Lady Maria. She is a character that needs no introduction, nor do we need to worry for her, as she'd be able to handle Gehrman with ease if he actually tried anything. Instead, he decided to do the only sane thing a man with a crush would do: create a doll in her likeness that he can fawn over instead. Bro said, "I'm gonna fuck an AI instead of gaining social skills," and that's pretty pathetic and also a little bit too real. Within the hunter's dream, the doll is brought to life, likely at Gehrman's request, but I doubt he found any joy in her, for her countenance is the exact opposite of Lady Maria, a purely subservient doll who will do anything requested of her. I'd like to believe in Gehrman, and that he would think, this isn't Maria. Which leads into his other toxic relationship, being the contract of employment he has with the Moon Presence. Beyond the fact that Gehrman doesn't get any paid leave or sick days, the reality is that he made a deal with a Great One only to be caught within it till the end of his days. Watching hunters pass through, unable to interact with the world at large, and being confined to a small workshop where you run out of things to do relatively quickly, it would drive even the calmest man to insanity. I won't say it's not a situation of his own making, but even with how much of a creep the first hunter is, I do still pity his miserable existence and how the deal gets more and more toxic the longer he stays as the hunter's helper. By freeing him with his death, we're getting a 2-for-1 deal, where we break the toxic chains that binded him to the Moon Presence, while also punishing him for, once again, making a fucking doll of the girl he liked behind her back. Men, if you're out there, let's not make eldritch pacts to try and get a relationship. For Dark Souls 3, we have a pair of player-focused relationships I want to talk about, though honourable mention does go to Lothric and Lorien. I can't help but feel Lothric keeping his brother alive in such a vegetative state is a little on the toxic side, and I can't deny their, brotherly love, shall we say, is a little bit sus. But did you know that depending on the player's actions, his relationship with the Firekeeper character can become extremely toxic? Specifically, you can choose to grant the Firekeeper eyes, allowing you to summon her at the very end of the game instead of linking the fire. This is a cute moment where your chosen waifu can smother the first flame herself, ushering in the Age of Dark. But if you're truly cruel, you can stomp her face into the ash and claim the fire for yourself. While we may see this as an impulsive choice as the player, look at it from the view of the Firekeeper. This Ashen One has granted you sight, leveled up with you throughout the game, and trusted you enough to summon you in the final moments of their journey, only for them to betray you at the final hurdle. If that's not a serious amount of toxic manipulation, I don't know what is. Well, maybe what the player can do to Henri is even worse. We love Henri. They're a fantastic NPC who just wants to take revenge on Aldrich for kidnapping them when they were children. Yet as we progress through Henri's questline, we can choose to follow the path of Londor, leading to Henri's purpose being fully derailed. We comfort them when they lose track of Horus while they're in a vulnerable state of emotional distress. We don't tell them of the assassin sent to finish them off, allowing them to be taken out by a Londor pale shade, also that when we reach the tomb of Gwyn, we can have a wonderful wedding. Cake, confetti, a sword to the face. Someone should tell the player that's not where the ring goes. We become betrothed to Anri, and in the very end of the game, they are there alongside the servants of Londor, who bow to us as their new Dark Lord. It's not a wedding by choice, it's a forced relationship built on our manipulation of Anri's circumstances and their willingness to trust anyone after the loss of their closest companion. And that is a truly toxic thought. For Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, there is but one relationship we need to talk about here, and it is the clearest sign of toxic manipulation in the game, that of Sekiro himself and his father, Great Shinobi Owl. I don't believe there is one moment where Owl is telling the truth to Sekiro, both prior to and including the events of the game. The man wants the power Kuro wields, yet is willing to go through far more nefarious lengths for his plans. He adopts Sekiro as an orphan on the battlefield, raises him to serve Kuro, only so that 3 years prior to the events of the game, he can orchestrate an attack on the Hirata estate that ends up with him killing his own son. Also, Kuro can use the dragon's blood to revive Sekiro, setting up the player character's immortality for the main game. Then, after Sekiro has taken care of Genichiro, Owl teams up with the Interior Ministry to invade Ashina Castle so he can claim Kuro for himself, and even tries to guilt the player into joining his cause by reminding him of the Iron Code of the Shinobi. You can't say no to Daddy. Everything Owl did in raising the player was for this moment, a manipulation of grand proportions to ensure that everything went his way. As we soon prove though, we're above his games. We slay Owl after he attempts multiple heinous acts of deception, cutting ourselves free of that toxic mindset our father instilled into us, allowing Sekiro to focus on Fountainhead Palace and beyond. And yet, at the end of both Owl fights, you can tell the father is proud of his son, in a way that initially feels heartwarming, yet also so emotionally manipulative. Like, no, you don't get to say that when you raised him to be this way, Owl. Ugh, I love his toxic ass so much. Finally, we reach Elden Ring, where my notes literally just say, Miquella and Marika versus everyone. I think it's quite self-explanatory. Both Miquella and Marika are some of the most manipulative characters in From Software history, and they were developed by George R.R. Martin. What were we expecting? Starting with Miquella, he's an Empyrean of kindness, with the ability to charm people to his cause. We see this in full display during the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, where Miquella was able to bring together a fully diverse group of followers who would normally be at each other's throats. But it extends beyond that to his own family as well. Debate all you want, Miquella had his sister Melania in a chokehold that she would never admit to. They did everything together. She awaited his return at the Halig Tree and helped to facilitate his journey to the Realm of Shadow through her fight with Radahn. But was it of her own free will, or because that's what Miquella wanted? Did he tell her that his plan was for Mohg to abscond with him from the Halig Tree to Mohgwyn Palace, causing 2 years of allegations from the internet against the blood-loving Omen, as everyone thought he was a Miquellester, when in reality he was getting Mohg-lested in the head? How willing was Radahn to become his consort? I actually believe he didn't require much convincing, but the point of Miquella is that he is a master manipulator, able to charm anyone even without actually charming them. We saw this during my 30,000 subscriber special video, where Miquella dominated an Elden Ring themed survivor simulator, and we see throughout the game as well that he does the same thing. Not to mention him pushing St. Trina off a cliff. You can't do that to yourself, man. But let's not forget that if Miquella is the master manipulator, Marika is the goddess of manipulation. This woman broke the Elden Ring, causing the entire events of the game, including the deaths of all of her and Renala's children, as well as both her husbands by our Tarnished's hands. This woman left Messmer to rot within the Realm of Shadow on a crusade against the Hornsent that would never find an end. He had every right to curse her in his dying moments. This woman turned into Radagon, married Renala, and then dumped her, giving her an amber egg to obsess over purely so she could neuter Renala's magical ability so that the former Queen of Caria would never rise against the Erd Tree, which is utterly unhinged. She brought Godfrey to the status of Elden Lord, had some cursed kids with him, then kicked his ass out of the house along with the rest of the Tarnished to prepare for the Shattering, leading to his death in the Badlands. Only so that when the Tarnished were revived later, he could get killed by our player. Morgott was fully dedicated to the Golden Order due to the teachings of his parents dying for Marika's beliefs, and that's not taking into account that Marika and her alter ego Radagon were also at odds with each other, to the point where Marika caused the Shattering while Radagon wanted to fix it. Her relationship was so toxic that she even repulsed her own other self. Elden Ring is fucking insane. So of those toxic relationships, which in Soulsborne is truly the worst? The answer is actually simple. None of them. Because the true final boss of toxic relationships is, of course, Miyazaki himself and his deranged desire to create poison swamps in every game he makes. He doesn't even know why he does it, he just loves it. Somebody stop this man before he... Oh no. I can feel it. Another poison swamp has been drafted into existence. Prepare thyselves for FromSoft's next mainline game, for we cannot stop him from creating another poison swamp. And that's my list. Which toxic relationship is your favorite in Soulsborne? Let me know down below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. This was a very stupid video. I hope you guys know it was just me having a bit of fun. Don't read too much into it at all. I want to give a shout out to my YouTube channel members for supporting me for another month. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. It's $4.99. It gets you early access to future videos. It gets you a special Dark Souls 3 Soul Level 1 run playthrough, and it's just really cool. You can also follow me over on Blue Sky if you want. As said, Illusory Wall is following me, and that's kinda cool. So if you want to follow me as well, go click that button. And I'll see you next time for another video. Adios.